to Gunfighter Life, the podcast where we talk about gunfighting with God at the center, with Judeo-Christian values and worldview, and real-world first-hand experience. I am your host, Michael Melito. First and foremost, I'm a Christian. I don't apologize for that. God is number one in my life, and hopefully that comes out in everything that I do, this podcast being no different. Roll into a quick bio and then into the subject matter. Joined the Marine Corps at 17. Did a couple of combat tours in Iraq. After that, I was an urban warfare instructor for the United States Marine Corps, where I taught urban warfare and desert warfare under Mojave Viper. I also served in the U.S. Army, both full-time and part-time National Guard. So I served in two branches of the Armed Forces honorably, as well as serving as a law enforcement officer. I worked for LAPD, I worked regular assignments and more specialized assignments. I worked for a 3-letter government agency I won't specify as a private contractor, so I've done that. In addition to that, I've been the commander of a tactical team, an SRT team, special response team in a large metropolitan area where our primary job was to stop active shooters. I've been blessed to win more shooting competitions than I can remember. I started competition shooting and was quite accomplished even before I joined the Marine Corps at 17. Been a state rifle and pistol champion a few times over, and I give God all the glory for that. Blessed be the Lord my rock, who trains my hands for war and fingers for battle. Psalm 144. I've also hunted all over this beautiful country. Been hunting since I was a boy. I've also been a professional hunter and guide, slaying all manner of beasts, professionally hunting and guiding for all manner of beasts. Hunting things, slaying animals like wolf and bear, and guiding for bison and elk. Not many people that I can say they've professionally done things like that, but I'm blessed to be able to say that I have. I've been a professional firearms instructor for a lot of years, FBI certified, NRA certified, taught at one of the largest privately owned shooting facilities in the country, and by that measure, probably the world. I might have left something out, but if you're listening to this after the Glock episode, I'm still on my way back from that hour-upon-hour journey to a major airport to take my wife to the airport for the holiday of Thanksgiving. So I'm still on my way back. And I woke up at 3-something this morning to do that and get back before work. So, if I sound a little tired or I'm talking a little fast or my thoughts kind of wander, that is probably why. Also, hearkening back to the days when I would just talk into the iPhone and upload it. So, if you remember those days and you've been listening that long, hats off to you. This is kind of a throwback to that because that's where we're at. And I'd rather do something productive on the drive than just sit there and stare out at space or listen to some garbage music or something like that. So that's what we're doing. This episode, fitting that I was taking my wife to the airport, because I'm going to talk about my wife in this episode. And I don't often talk about my wife on the podcast because, this is not really affiliated with her and I don't want to drag her into my stuff. But I don't think she'd mind me mentioning her in this episode. My wife recently decided she wanted to do some more hiking. We live in a beautiful, beautiful area for hiking. We're very blessed. And I support her in that, and I want her to do that. She gets up in the morning a lot of times and goes running and goes hiking. And she is a gun owner. She was before I met her. She's a shooter. She's a very good shooter. But she doesn't really have any super small subcompact guns, so she wants to do quite a bit of hiking out in the wilderness. And again, I support that. But her primary job is not to carry a gun. It's not, a full-size duty gun or a rifle or a pistol or a bug-out gun or a prepper gun or a duty gun or a home defense gun. She wanted something small and handy and lightweight. And you might think with my bio that I own all kinds of guns. And I own a fair amount of guns, but I'm a gun fighter, not a gun collector. Generally, there are some exceptions, but generally if I have a gun that I don't use and shoot or think I will have a particular need for, I sell it and get rid of it and focus on shooting and training with the guns that I have. I'd rather be good with a few guns and own a bunch of guns and not have time to practice with them or money to put ammo in them. And we all know that the cost of that has gone up recently. So with that being said, I really didn't have anything for her. The super small subcompact gun that I work out with and I run with is a Smith & Wesson 357 Magnum 360 PD. Super small, super lightweight. And I had an old 38 Special that was my first handgun that I ever bought for a backup gun for LAPD. And that was my first thought. Now, I don't recommend this for a new shooter or for especially a woman as a new shooter. Those small J-frame revolvers are not, I repeat, are not my first go-to choice, and I don't think they should be for you either for a lady. But my wife is not a new shooter. She's a very accomplished, not accomplished, she's a very good shooter. She's never done any competition shooting or anything like that, but she's a good shooter. And she's familiar with firearms. She owned guns before I met her. So I thought, I own that gun. Let's take her and have her shoot a couple of different guns. Now, I went to a shooting range where you can rent guns and got a few different ones. And I had her try the super small J-frame size revolver. And she didn't like it. She's not familiar with revolvers. She didn't really like it, didn't like the grip on it, didn't like a lot of things about it. So that was out. So the gun that I already owned that I thought she might be able to use was out. So she wanted something, again, super small and subcompact. Her goal was to get from point A to point B. Think, yuppie hiking, REI, nice boots, nice pack. Going from point A to point B, looking at the scenery, seeing a chipmunk eat a pine cone on a log, kind of hiking. Not hunting, not prepping, not survival. Just hiking. In fairly remote areas where, the danger might be, getting abducted or jumped on a trail or by a person, or maybe danger from bears and mountain lions, which will be in the area. So, with those things in mind, but a super small subcompact gun that's not going to get in the way of her running in the morning or hiking. So with that being said, we rented a few guns. Rented a Glock 42, which is a 380 super small subcompact single stack Glock. We rented that and the Ruger LCP. The one we rented was the LCP Plus because that's what they had. They didn't have just a regular Ruger LCP S or whatever it's called with the better trigger, the upgraded trigger. So we rented those two and also the 6-hour SIG P238. So we rented those guns in mind for her for something small and subcompact for her to be able to have on her waistband or on her pack strap or whatever. And we shot those. She shot those. The primary job was for her, so she shot first. I may have tried them, but she shot those. She, again, didn't like the 38 Special revolver. It wasn't for her. I didn't even try to get her to shoot with 357 Magnums, my go-to carry gun. She didn't really care for that gun. She shot the Glock and she liked it. She shot the LCP and she liked it. Now, she liked the LCP more from the carry standpoint because it's lighter and she liked the way it felt better. It also, in my opinion, had better sights on it than the factory Glock sights, which is not a surprise. But she liked the feel of that one better, but it was so light that it had more recoil even in 380 than she liked. She liked shooting the Glock better, but didn't like that it was heavier, although it's, again, a super small, lightweight gun. So that was her thoughts on those two. And then the other one, the SIG 238. Now, I'm a 1911 guy, if you've listened to this podcast. I like the 1911 trigger. I think it is like the apex of handgun triggers, at least for categories of handguns. You might find like a SIG P210 with a better handgun, but that's kind of with a better trigger, but that's kind of a one-off. So she shot the 938, but she didn't really like it because she's not used to that light, crisp, single-action trigger. So she actually shot really well with the other two guns, the Glock and the Ruger LCP. Now, the Ruger LCP was in 380, and she shot it, but she said she didn't really care for the recoil on it. And before you turn your nose up, the 380 in a super small, lightweight gun like that can be pretty snappy. In fact, I found it to be snappier than, like a full-size 9mm duty handgun, like a Glock 17, in my opinion, because the handgun is so light. So I mentioned her that they made that gun in a 22, and she was really excited about that. I have a few 22 handguns that I train with so I can save money on the cost of ammo that are similar to my duty gun. So if I'm practicing the draw at 7 yards or one of my standards, most of the fundamentals, in fact all the fundamentals are the same except for recoil control. Why not practice with a 22 and save some time and money trying to find ammo in 9mm or buying ammo? So that's what I do. And she shot the 22s. She's familiar with the 22. And I told her they made that Ruger LCP and a 22. She was pretty excited about that. They didn't have one to rent, but they did have one there for her to play with. And so the jury's still out. There's no rush on it. But so that's the update on her on this short episode of probably what's going to be another gun for the family, because I didn't really have a gun to fill that niche application. She also looked at, if you're listening to this for ladies, they also, I was not aware, make like running pants, like yoga pants, which she likes, which I can't stand that women wear those. That is acceptable in society, but whatever. You pick your battles. But they make those with like a little concealed carry pocket in the front or in the back. And she was looking at those too, so that might be an option for her to go running with in the morning or for hiking or whatever. Maybe she'll put it on her pack strap, I don't know. But I'd rather have a small concealed carry gun like that on her that's quickly accessible, that she can grab in a matter of seconds, and a lot of times gunfights are started and ended in a matter of seconds. The small concealed carry gun on her waistband or on her pack strap that she can grab quickly is better than the AR that's in her pack that she can't get to. If a bear attacks her on the trail, I doubt she's going to have time to take off her pack, dig in it, and grab her AR. Or if somebody jumps out from a bush on a trail and attacks her, I doubt she's going to have time for that either. So I'm glad that she wants to have a small carry gun like that on her. Now, whether she picks the Glock and 380 or the Ruger LCP and 22, I think those are her two top choices. So whichever one of those she chooses, I'm not sure yet. But I guess stay tuned to future episodes, and when she decides to pick one, I guess I'll keep you guys updated. So I guess, gleaning from this episode, if you're thinking about getting your wife a firearm for the holidays or something like that, I really would encourage you, I know you might want it to be a surprise, but I really would encourage you to stay away from just getting her a handgun and giving it to her. Really try and take her somewhere where she can try different handguns. And if you can't do that, maybe find a friend or two that has a couple of different guns and let her try those. Because you don't know what's going to be effective until you actually try it. That whole thing of like what feels good in the hand, that's not really valid, because that has really no impact or very little impact on how you're actually going to shoot it, unless you're so well versed in handguns and handgun shooting that you can pick it up and kind of know intuitively. And even then you don't really know, but that it aligns properly for you and points properly for you and shoots well for you. So I would encourage you to take that person out, man or woman, if you're thinking about getting them a new gun or a new handgun or carry gun or concealed carry gun, and actually having them put some rounds to it. And a lot of women gravitate to the super small subcompact guns, and that's great if they're going to carry them on their body. But if they're not, I would encourage you to stay away from those. They're more of an intermediate or expert's gun, especially the super small subcompact revolvers. I would encourage you to gravitate towards the full size. Well, first of all, if it's for home defense, I'd encourage you to gravitate towards a shotgun. And if it's for just a home defense handgun, I would encourage you to go to a full-size handgun, because that's going to have less recoil and be easier to shoot. The smaller the gun in general, the harder it is to shoot, and the more recoil it's going to have for a given caliber. So I would say to keep that in mind. A lot of people, especially women, and I don't want to denigrate women, I'm very happy that they're getting to the shooting sports. I really encourage that, because women are probably more likely to be the victim of a violent crime or, sadly, a rape or something like that than a man. So I think they should be armed. But a lot of women see a small handgun and they gravitate towards it because it's small and it looks cute and it looks unintimidating. But the smaller the handgun, again, in general, the more recoil it's going to have and the harder it's going to be to shoot for a given caliber. So unless she's going to carry that on her for running or for hiking or something like that, I would say stick more towards the full size. And with that in mind, guys, I'm going to say thanks for listening to this episode. If you want to support, please consider going to goodshepherdtraining.com. That's your one-stop shop. If you like this podcast, you may also like the Alpha Male podcast. If you care about the important stuff, Simple Man Sermons, the preachings of a simple man called by God to share the good news of Jesus Christ. You can find all those at goodshepherdtraining.com. If you want to support, if you thought this content was worth $1 for the fraction of the cost of a box of ammo or a fancy cup of coffee at most city coffee shops, you can support the content that you're listening to, because it's free for you to listen to, and I like it that way, but sadly it's not free to produce. So consider going to goodshepherdtraining.com, scrolling down to Patreon, clicking on there and supporting. It'd be greatly appreciated. So with that, guys, I'm going to say thanks and have a blessed day. As a tactical tip, I know a lot of people would kind of put down 22 for defense. And I would say, although it's not ideal, I would rather my wife have a gun that she would practice with and shoot with and carry all the time than something somebody else might consider more suitable that she doesn't practice with. And if she wants to get that, I support her in that decision. And I would say that if you are going to consider 22 for defense, especially in a handgun, it's ammo is always critical. Whatever gun you carry, the part that's going to do the job, that's going to put that animal down or put that person and change their bad behavior, is going to be the bullet, the projectile, and the ammunition. So no matter how good the ammo is, if the round one doesn't go off or isn't reliable or doesn't hit where you're aiming, then the gun doesn't really matter much, does it? If you actually have to pull that trigger, and I pray that you don't, unless it's for practice or for fun or for training. But 22 ammo is even more critical because a lot of it is designed for rifle, and a lot of it is not very reliable. Like if she is going to carry a 22, I would never ever recommend that she carry Remington Golden Bullets. If you just want to run Remington Golden Bullets and a Heritage Rough Rider revolver for training because that's what you have, that's fine. To practice the fundamentals, that's fine. To practice your malfunction drills, that's fine. But in my opinion, they're some of the most unreliable, the Remington Golden Bullets, and they make your gun filthy. Not that they don't have their place, but I would not recommend that she carries those. What I would recommend in common ammo, I would really recommend assuming that it's reliable in your handgun, and you have to test it out in your handgun, I would recommend to start with the CCI Mini Mags. The CCI Mini Mags, if it's for defense in a handgun, I think penetration in a 22 is key. And I would recommend the CCI Mini Mags, probably the solids, but the hollow points, if they expand in that barrel length, fine. But the CCI Mini Mags are kind of my go-to for the common handgun ammo. For the more exotic stuff, and I encourage my wife to keep a Ruger 1022 in her trunk anyway, the trunk of her car. And that's kind of her go-to oh crap rifle if she breaks down somewhere or something like that. She shoots it very well. She likes it. It's fun. And what she keeps in her glove box, let me check right now as I'm talking and open it up to make sure she still has them in there, and she does. And they would probably be my next go-to if you can find them. Right now, I'll give what you can find, but they're the Winchester Super X 22 long rifle, 40 grain, round nose, copper plated, at 1,300 feet a second. That would probably be my next go-to recommendation for that. I would stick with some of the heavier grain towards the 22. I know a lot of people like the CCI velocitors or stingers or stuff like that, but I think mass is important, especially out of a handgun in a 22, and I would gravitate more towards the 36 to 40 grain rather than anything lighter, and that's just me. If you got the stingers and they shoot good in your handgun and they shoot point of A and point of impact, then, go for it. They're good quality ammunition. There's also a bullet profile that's really good that I think is probably better than both those for defense out of a handgun, and it is the flat point solids. And the only one I think that I'm aware of that makes them are the Remington, and I believe they're the Yellow Jackets. But it's kind of a semi-wad cutter design that was popular for a lot of years before hollow points became popular, and it's kind of that in a 22. The only problem is I can't ever find them anywhere. I don't even know anywhere that stocks them. But if you could find those would be a fantastic option. They're kind of a flat nose, And the flat nose is a great bullet profile if you're not going to run a hollow point, better than a round nose in my opinion. And if they feed in your gun, I think that's fantastic. So if she does decide to go with the 22, and if you decide for yourself or somebody else to go with a 22 handgun for defense, then I would recommend those loads. And there may be other ones that I'm not aware of. But of the common ammo, again, the CCI mini mags are kind of my starting point. And not all handguns, especially 22s, like all 22 ammo. But I would start with the CCI mini mags of the common ammo that you're probably going to find at Walmart, at your big box store. That's probably the go-to one. And it's a common ammo, so you're probably going to be able to find it even in ammo shortage times like this somewhere online on the internet. So that's where I would start. With that, guys, thanks for listening to Gunfighter Life, and have a blessed day.